Hello, wonderful. This is Sarah. And have you ever been someone who's like, that green stuff? No, not envy. We're talking money. And there's just a real imbalance in men and women when it comes to money, when it comes to private equity, when it comes to, I don't want to say understanding money because that makes women seem, it's just not been historically women have not had enough experiments in dealing with money. And we have Kelly Winget, and she is here to help us understand that green stuff and understand our role in it. She has a decade of experience in investments and banking and financials, and has raised $1 billion in private equity. So those big bucks don't scare her. Hello, Kelly Ann. How are you?
Hi, Sarah. I'm great. Thank you for having me on today.
Now, when we talked, you talked about the imbalance and a kind of a power imbalance in this space.
Oh, yeah. The financial sector is like, especially the financial services space, is one of the most imbalanced places that I've ever worked. And I've pretty much always worked in male dominated industries. My first job was at a car wash, and I moved into construction, demolition, and then oil and gas. So I was always scooting chairs up to the table with the big boys and demanding a seat and a place. So I've been in the alternative investment space for a little over a decade, and I still am typically the youngest and also the only female in most of the rooms that I go into. So it's been nice to find a small group of women who are trying to change this and being part of that in our field.
So you mentioned before our podcast that you think women are left out on purpose. Do you want to explain more about that?
Yes. So when I first started in this industry, and if you're familiar with the movie Boiler Room, there was a phrase in that movie. It was, don't pitch the bitch, right? And so this is actually said in real life in rooms in the financial world. And I've had it said to me by finance managers, fund managers, a couple times in my career. And it was always shocking to me because you see these things in Hollywood, right? This messaging is in movies and TVs and shows that you watch, and that's kind of where we get that mindset, right? Oh, women don't make financial decisions; it's all the men. And this phrase has kind of really stuck with me because in my career, and I'm talking to pretty typical husband-wife investors in this space. And I'll spend a lot of time talking to the husband about the investment opportunity because that's what we're told to do, right? And it would get to the end of the conversation and time to write the check. And the husband has no idea what bank they're at, where the checkbook is. And they have to bring their wife in the conversation. Okay. And by that time, she has no information. This person has talked to her husband for, weeks. And now she's getting brought into the conversation. So she usually, puts the brakes on it. She's like, we're not doing this. I don't know anything about it. And at this point, she just doesn't want to hear it because she wasn't involved from the beginning. And this is done on purpose because they want to try to, it's all game. They're trying to get someone to commit to investing in something before what we come in with as women. We're kind of naturally suspicious of things. And so we ask a different set of questions than men do when it comes to investing. And so I just kind of shifted my entire focus away from that and making sure that if I'm going to talk to a husband and wife about an investment, I make sure that both of them are involved from the very beginning, because one, I don't want to waste my own time. And two, I don't want to waste her time because she's ultimately going to make that decision. We all think, and all the stats all show that men make the investment decisions, but in reality, women are the ones that are running the household financially.
Mm-hmm. And there's something to be said about women's intuition. I love that you asked when we don't ignore it. And I'm screaming to all my listeners, when we don't ignore it, there's such power in that when we listen. And I was in a corporate, I was talking to you about being in Dallas, how often I used to be in Dallas. And there was a corporate executive for females training that I was a part of. And she talked about how, there's kind of a stereotype about men compartmentalizing things differently than women, and then women's intuition. But she talked about how the right side and the left side of women's brains talk to each other in different ways than male brains. And it's not, it
Mhm.
wasn't a conversation about one being good or one being
Right.
bad. It was a conversation about the value of women having a seat at the table and having that intuition, because I know personally, I can speak from my experience. I am not as good as compartmentalizing things as my husband, but
Mhm.
man, I can pick up on things and just that intuitive nature. And it's how my brain works.
Right. And we all kind of work that way. And it's very evident when I talk to the two sets of investors, right? A husband, wife couple, a single man or a single woman, right? They all invest differently. And that's one because their goals are different. But it's definitely women will ask a lot of questions. They'll do a lot of their own research, but when it comes down to it, they just go with their gut. And men kind of take more of a gamble. They don't do a gut thing. They're just like, we'll try it. It's not whether or not they feel a certain way about it. They think they've done enough research and they're like, this is a good decision because I've done this research. And it's not, I've done this research. I still have questions, but I have a good feeling. That's more how women invest. And from my experience anyways.
Have you seen those statistics on that? If a man is applying for a job, if he's like 60% qualified, he'll kind of take that risk and take that leap, exactly what you just described in the investing process. And that women, if they are 95% qualified, they'll be like, oh, there's this 5%. Maybe I shouldn't apply. It's like, whoa, no, girls, come
Right.
on, take
Right.
that risk. But I do want to bring that statistic to what you just described, because it's a very similar process. And sometimes there's some real advantages to some, I won't put a category on every male, but some stereotypical male traits of just like, sure, let's try it. Let's see what happens, right? There's some advantages to that.
Right. Women are 1,000% more risk adverse than men when it comes to
Mhm.
investing. And which can be a good thing, but also a bad thing because they're not taking the same risks as their male counterparts. So they're not they do they do better in their specific portfolio than men if they were investing the same way. But men overall make more because they take more risks. Whether they're calculated or not is another conversation, but they take more risks than women. And I think that in my experience, because I've been doing this for over a decade, that in the last few years, especially with COVID, I have more women coming to me wanting to take that risk and wanting to do more with their portfolio because they're seeing the opportunity out there, that they're taking the time and saying, okay, now I need to take control of my finances. I need to do something. I can't just keep letting this, advisor that I maybe have spoken to one or two times have control of my stuff. And that's kind of a big shift that's happened mainly through COVID.
So this may seem like a silly question, but I know some of our listeners. Can you talk about some of the advantages of having that control of your finances, and some of the advantages of like, okay, I'm gonna work. I mean, I grew up in a house.
Mhm,
I I don't. I mean, if my dad died,
mhm.
I don't know that my mother would know how to pay a bill. I really, maybe she would, maybe not. I don't know. I mean, and my dad doesn't make his own sandwich, right? I mean, it's just very stereotypical role, and they're happily married, and they're nice to each other. It works out for them. That same methodology has I have seen destroy other people's lives, and I am not the same. And my daughter want to have her what is it that bring home the bacon and fry
Yeah.
it up or something ridiculous.
Well, there's a shift happening, right? The older generations, that is how things worked.
Mhm.
The husbands took care of the money and the wives took care of the house, and that's just how it was. But you have people that are in their like the 45 to
Mhm.
55-year-old range, is going to have more of that dual responsibility. And I think that, as women are staying single longer now, they're having more control of that going into a relationship with somebody else. A lot of people are keeping things separate. Like my sister and her husband have been together for, I don't know, 10 years or something. And they have always kept their finances separate. They
Mhm.
don't do like he pays his half of the mortgage, she pays her half of the mortgage, and everything's separate. Now that works for them, doesn't always work for everybody else. But I think that the more control you have, or at least just knowledge of where the money is and where it's going, will help protect everyone when something like that does happen. Because the fact is, women will outlive their partners at 9 out of 10 times. So the fact that we are outliving um, our partners in old age, we have to know where that money is and what happens when one of us dies. Um, and if you're going into that blindly, you could end up with a financial advisor or your estate planner, whoever, who's going to try to control that money after that person's gone, because you don't know what you're doing, right? And they don't have any motivation for your well-being outside of their commission or fee, right? They're an AUM person. They just want to have as much money under management as possible and collect their 2 to 3%. The fact that you want to uh, live on a boat in retirement has nothing, they don't care. So how can you invest to make sure that you're having the lifestyle you want before and after your spouse dies?
And the good thing about investing in that type of thing, I know we are moving into my grandmother was literally her husband died. He died of lung cancer because he worked at a government
Mhm,
plant. And so my dad grew up without a father. She had 3 kids. I don't think she graduated from high school, which is pretty normal back then.
mhm.
And she was just happy to not lose her house. I mean, when you talk about living in survival, I mean, she was truly just, I know she had a boyfriend who had a lot of alcohol issues that she kept around just because she thought, I'm going to lose my house. I have 3 children. And one time a friend was talking about having a nervous breakdown. And I remember her telling me that she was washing dishes and she said, who has time for a nervous breakdown? Like, I got 3 kids, dead husband, like, I don't have time for a nervous breakdown. And, most of us are not living in that type of life anymore. There are certain things that have improved. But as you had that, was just like, let's everyone be fed. And
Mhm.
then you had kind of almost that, okay, don't spend your money, right? Just make sure you don't spend, like save, 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 don't spend your money. And then now we're moving into more of an abundance mindset and more of like an investment, investing financially, investing in ourselves with a financial
Oh
payoff.
yeah.
I mean, the investments I have made in coaching and all, there have been a financial payoff. There's been an emotional payoff too, but there's been a financial payoff to those experiences. And we're making that shift and it's a good shift. And women are making that shift.
Yes. And it's really evident and it's really important because I know you focus a lot on, what is the toxic trait and how do we recognize these things? And in the financial sector and even in your partner, um, the inability to open up about your finances is a huge red flag. So if you are with somebody, and this is in business or in your personal life, if you have a partner who can't be honest with themselves about their financial situation, they're never going to be honest with you about their financial situation. And you can't come together on that. You can't grow together with that. Everyone kind of needs to be on the same page, even if your financial goals are different. Uh, my financial goal is that I want to be 100 billionaire. And so I want to try to make sure that my money's working that way. And my partner is a social worker. So her work is focused on, the betterment of the community, which is also something that I really care about, but she's not out. Her financial goals and her financial work isn't on how can I make the most money. And mine is how do I make the most money so that I can help people who aren't in that situation. And so you have to be able to be honest about that and be okay with whatever that other person's decision is.
I had a business coach, and he said the best way to help poor people is not to be one. And
Right.
it was so funny. But I came from
Yeah.
a background of like my dad was a minister, my mom was a nurse, background of education. It was like, and I remember a teacher, and he was talking, and he said, well, we're not here for the money. And it's like, but I mean, it's your job. Like you're actually here for the
Right.
like that's what a job is to some extent, right? And I have so many friends who are teachers. I'm not insulting the profession. I'm saying we need to pay teachers more.
Yes.
Very clearly, let me be
Yes.
very clear about my beliefs on
Yes.
that. But you know, when we've almost made it this like holy trait or some type of it's like, oh, but it's not about the money. And that can be true. And money gives you choices.
Right.
And money pays for a tutor for your child. And I mean, I have never, and I mean never, ever walked in and bought medicine for my child without thinking about how grateful I was that I didn't have to, you know, and it's $10. I've not had major health things, but every single time I go and buy that children's Tylenol, I think I am so grateful
Right.
that I can do this without having to second guess it or having, oh no, I'm not going to have enough money. Or, I mean, it's those little things, but I'm appreciative every single time.
Right. And once you get into that mindset of um, it's okay to have money,
Mhm.
it's okay to know about money, it's okay to spend money when you have the money. It really changes your whole, I don't know, energy. It is a huge relief, and I think that most people feel that way. Like if I had enough money, I would not be so stressed. And you know, defining how much is enough money. And for some people, they think, oh, when I can afford a Gucci bag, or when I can afford this car, or when I can afford to go on vacation every month. It's like, no, the enough money is, where am I that I don't have to worry about my necessities being paid for? And um, and if there's an emergency, I can be okay. Because then after that, then it doesn't matter how much money you earn, because then the sky's the limit, right? My necessities are taken care of, my family's taken care of. Now I can focus on growth. Now I can focus on how much more money can I make. And you don't want to change your lifestyle as that money grows. That's kind of the biggest downfall, especially with like doctors, right? Doctors have this lifestyle that they maintain. And as they uh, advance in their career, they upgrade their car, they upgrade their house, they upgrade their neighborhood, all of these things, because they maintain the image of being a doctor. And I say this because I work with a lot of doctors. Okay. They're all the same. You know, there's not ever like, oh, I'm a different doctor. No, you're all the same. And uh, it's chasing that lifestyle. And they're typically, these people make a lot of money. I mean, you're talking about surgeons, radiologists, these people that make 4, 5, 600, maybe even $1 million a year in W-2 income. Okay. And they're still broke.
Mhm.
You know, they're chasing, they've got the 10,000 a month mortgage, they've got the $5,000 a month lease car, and they've got 5 of them, you know. And as soon as they advance, they up their lifestyle. They're not thinking about, okay, what happens when I'm done working? What happens when I'm not making 500, $1 million a year? And they don't have the time to invest in investing. They're doctors. So there are investment groups out there that help doctors invest their money. But they're so hands off that you could ask them like, oh, what are you investing? He goes, oh no, my guy does that. Right. Well,
Right.
what is your guy doing? You have to be present in some way with your money. Or you could wake up one day like some people are now, and their portfolio is down 25% for the year. And for people that are in their late 60s and early 70s, that's a huge chunk of their net worth, and they're not making any income. Like this is the rest of their money for the rest of their life. So
Mhm.
you have to pay
So
attention.
wisdom. And I know if someone is listening and they're like, I need to pay attention more. And you know, I need somebody I can trust. Where can people find out more about you and your work?
So I'm pretty accessible online. You could Google me, and I'm everywhere. There's a lot of information on our website, which is alternativewealthpartners.com. You can reach out to me directly. My email is k.winget@alternativewealthpartners.com. I love responding to people that are curious about the alternative space. So what that really means is that we invest in everything off of Wall Street. So we don't do anything in the public space. We're not going to do anything that your financial advisor is going to have access to. There's definitely stepping stones to getting to invest in private equity. But a good place to start if you're starting your investment journey or you want to start learning about this stuff, is just doing some basic research. There's a lot of what are called Robo Advisors available, which are little robot advisors. So you have things like Stash, which is an app, Stash, Robinhood. I have a preference of Ellevest because it's women focused. Sally Krawcheck is the founder of Ellevest, and the entire platform is designed for women and the way that women invest. And that is a great place to start because they do provide a lot of financial literacy information. So it doesn't force you to start investing. It just wants you to start learning about investing. And then it has the tools if you want to start moving forward. And just taking the steps to educate yourself and what all of this means and asking the questions. So like if you have a financial advisor or if you're working, you have a 401k, there's somebody attached to that 401k. Like it is at a custodian and you can call that custodian and talk about your 401k. And if you aren't involved in your family's finances, start getting involved because it's going to be really important as a woman to know that information because you will be left with that money. So you want to know where it is.
Thank you so much. And we will put all that stuff in the show notes. You guys check her out. Sometimes money feels scary, but it is the energy and the exchange of how we feed and clothe and care for ourselves. So definitely worth checking out and giving a little extra love to. So thank you, Kelly, for helping us on our journey to becoming toxic person proof.
Thank you, Sarah.